I want you to think of a period in your life when you failed to live up to someone's expectation. It could be your family member, your friend, or anyone else. Now I want you to hold this thought, and we'll come back to that later. For me, that memory still continues to spin around in my head to this day. My father had a serious addiction to alcohol until he was diagnosed with diabetes, and religion was the only salvation that made him stop. From that day on, it became an integral part of our family. But no matter how much I tried to accept this new lifestyle, I felt out of place, in my own home and among my family members. Visiting the mosque on Fridays and repeating some sacred phrases under my father's supervision developed mixed feelings in me. It made me feel that I was doing it simply to please my father and not because it felt right for me. I was holding a candle, but it had already been lit by my father. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to extinguish it or ask whether it was the light I wanted. And by light, I mean my story. You can find yourself in different stories as you start living this life, with different characters and plot twists, but what makes them so unique is that these are your stories. We as writers have to stay true to ourselves and our own stories, and we shouldn't let people interfere with them. The only thing that others can do is just simply listen to them, because both listening and telling stories help us process what we live through and encourage others to do the same. Now, let's break this down a little bit. So when I started diving deeper into the topic of storytelling, I came across the concept of identity foreclosure. You might have heard of this term. So according to Santana Ainis, identity foreclosure happens when we commit to an identity or a life path without properly exploring alternatives. Teenagers fall into this category because they are most likely to fall under someone's influence, especially if these are people whom we deeply love and respect. When we are closing our identity, the key feeling that we might feel is fear. Fear of saying something in direct opposition to one's values or beliefs. What's interesting is that in Kazakh culture, a father figure is not only a person whom you must respect, but also the one to whom you have to feel a great sense of duty. A father is also seen as a spiritual leader. That's why many of us are finding ourselves in the trap of identity foreclosure, because we are so afraid to go against those established principles, and therefore struggle a lot when it comes to not only writing, but also telling our stories. My father's story crossed paths with religion, and it became his light. At some point I realized that I also have to find my light too, and not just borrow his. Even though he was so open to share it with me, it was simply not for me. So I started searching for a way where I could express the thoughts that I couldn't say out loud. I dedicated all of my time to gaining knowledge, whether it was a science project I was working on or simply reading additional literature no one asked for. I worked on film sets and I heard a lot of good, great, incredible stories, whether it was fiction or real story. I hope that you dare to open up to someone that will listen to you, a person with whom you won't be afraid to be brutally honest and sincere. That's what I was also thinking of when I was discovering my path, and that was the moment when I started uncovering other stories of my family, and I started it with my uncle. Even though his light was also already shining bright, he wasn't trying to impose his perspective on me. He had his own philosophy of life, and I was curious to gain a completely different perspective from what I had from my father. Conversations with him helped me realize that imposed lifestyles could lead to character stagnation, anxiety, and marking everything that you do as wrong. They were not simply about you have to do this and that, but more about what do you think about it and how do you feel. Reflecting on these questions helped me realize that mistakes that I did and will do in the future, reflect on them and continue to do this and to do them and learn from them. Because the moment when I realized that I failed to live up to my father's expectations was when I stopped sharing anything with him. And not because I didn't have anything interesting going on in my life, but because he was not genuinely interested to listen to my story. And I thought, alright, I mean, it's not for everyone. But the realization hurt. It made me feel like I was betraying him, like I was turning away from something sacred. However, reflecting on the questions that my uncle asked me helped me become more confident in decisions I make and will make in the future, as well as no longer be afraid to start writing the very first chapter of my own story by my own hand. Nowadays, stories aren't just used to remember the past or entertain people, but also to shape our future. It's a very powerful tool that has always been underestimated. By sharing our stories, even our deepest, darkest secrets, we make people feel included and show them that they are not alone. In the end, discovering my path was not only about a specific belief, it was about becoming brave and no longer be afraid of declaring my own story. Even though the room you are standing in right now seems to be dark, or you think that you are standing there alone, it doesn't mean that it will always be like that. Don't let your light go, protect it, and trust people around you. But first of all, always trust yourself. Your story is something that gives hope to you and to other people. And who knows, maybe your unique story might become someone's light in the room next door. And that's the power of the story. Thank you.